Good evening, and welcome along to The Big Show here on NVTV. Now, coming up on the show this evening, we'll be chatting about midlife celebrations with TV presenter and star of Loose Women, Andrea McClean. She's going to be with us a little bit later on. We'll have some brand new music from the Rising. We're going to hear their brand new single, and we'll be finding out about the Belfast charity Lighthouse. But starting us off on the show this evening, we're talking about dating, and we've been joined by the star of TV's First Dates. Here's what happens when I met Cici Coleman. So we're talking dating do's and don'ts now with TV personality Cici Coleman, who joins us now on the line. Cici, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very good, actually. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So let's start off by talking about this new research that's just come out. What have we discovered then?
Surprisingly, but not surprisingly, I think it all starts to make sense. So biggest turn-offs are bad table manners, which I find quite fascinating because you'd think that we'd all know what good table manners look like. But after a year of being in a lockdown, I can only imagine that we've all picked up some bad habits through maybe sitting, watching TV and eating rather than at a table. So I kind of get it, but that's up there for number one. And biggest turn on is showing interest in people. So asking questions, communicating, but also that is another part of what's happened in the last year, right? Where we've all been a bit affected because our communication is, I mean, I don't know about you, but social skills are, they're all over the shop at the moment.
I spoke to somebody recently who went on a first date, and the person they went on the date with spent the whole night looking at their phone and completely ignored the other person.
Yeah, that's up there as well with the don'ts. I mean, I think that's pretty basic understanding, but yeah, if you're interested in someone, you're not going to be looking at your phone, are you? Because you're interested. That's how I see it and how I would take it. So get off your phones.
So what about your own dating experiences then? Have you had any real dating disasters? I quite enjoy dating, and maybe a disaster I would turn into something funny or a positive, because I don't think you can get it wrong, but it's quite funny because it's just you. It's just the person. You know, if you get it wrong, someone's going to like you're wrong. Someone else won't. So I think you've just got to, you know, be yourself. You really have got to turn up as you. And if you get drop food down you do, you know, all these things. We have been at home for a year. So I think the good part of the One for All restaurant's favourite gift card, it means that it's encouraging people to go back out. It's encouraging you to go and sit and socialise and be in that environment and do the things we haven't done for a year. So obviously dating has changed over the years. Everybody's using these online dating apps now, but are we ever going to go back to the days when you can simply go out to a bar, meet somebody, start chatting and start a relationship that way?
I hope so, yeah. I mean, there's definitely been a bit more freedom, hasn't there, recently? So I think, you know, dating apps, great. Why not? It's a good way to meet people, but you miss the essence of that person. You know, you get a picture and you get a sentence. So I think that the essence is what you get when you're, or presence, what you get, what's missing on, say, a dating app, which is why I just keep encouraging people to keep eating out, keep doing it, keep going on dates, you know. Get it wrong, get it right, and we all learn, right?
So obviously for the past 18 months, we've had no physical contact with people. So what about going on a first date? What's the kind of etiquette around touching people?
I think you've kind of got to ask the question. You know, I'm a hugger, so my arms are out. I'm like a baby. I just want to hug everybody. But obviously I've had to hold back. And also, I guess that isn't my energy is slightly different in that area because not everybody wants a hug, especially now. So I think you've just got to kind of say, you okay with that? You know, ask the question, and you know, if so, then that awkward moment of like how many kisses and what, you know, then the rest of the awkwardness comes.
And what's your thoughts on paying for the bill at the end of the date?
I'm from a traditional background. My dad has always sort of been that guy that has paid the way. So that's what I know. So I think it's lovely. we are in the 21st century, you know, we are where we're at now, everything seems to be changing and moving. So I think it is a lot more acceptable. That's why I think having a gift card means that you take away that awkwardness. It's removed because you're paying, you don't have to think about who you pay cash and I pay, and how, you know, it just removes that. Just pay with the card and then it's done, and then that situation's over.
Now, what about a location for a first date? One of the most ridiculous ones that I can think of is taking somebody to a cinema where you're stuck in the dark for 2.5 hours, where you can do no conversation whatsoever.
I could not agree with you more. I love the cinema, but it's for me, that's like date night with someone I've been with for a while, and you know, you are engrossed in the movie, and that's the point of going to cinema. You're engrossed in something. It kind of takes you out of your own space. The whole point of being on a date is that you're putting your attention on someone else. So I think to sit, you know, or you're going to be those really annoying people that are chatting throughout the movie. So yeah, not for me.
Now, I'm reading here in this research as well that some people have actually experienced 3 people on a date, but they've actually brought their mate along as well. Surely that's a no-no.
It is, yeah. I think that, I mean, that's definitely happened to me, and I've definitely been in that situation before. And it just removes romance. It automatically puts it in. Do you know what? You're a mate, so you're going to meet my mates, and let's make this a mate's date. Or if you're doing it through fear because you don't want to go on your own, then, you know, that raises another question.
Well, Cici, sadly we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us on the show today and giving us some good advice there as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Right, time for some brand new music now, and country rock band The Rising are back with a brand new single that comes out later on this month. It's called Highway to the Lost and Found, and here's a special unplugged version that they recorded especially for us.
Can't see the eye of the storm, falling fast, it won't take long. Down in the snake pit, the lights have gone out. No one to warn you, there's no way out. Well, how you ever gonna get out? How you ever gonna get out? You're on the highway to the lost and found, shifting gears to another town, making plans and no one's around. You're on the highway to the lost and found. Well, how you ever gonna get turned around? Standing here but the rain don't set out. You're on the highway to the lost and found. You're on the highway to the lost and found, yeah. I know that it sounds good to me, another place and there ain't no fee. It's just another place with nothing to say. Sign in the window said it's taking to stay. One more town and one more day. One more town and one more day. You're on the highway to the lost and found, shifting gears to another town, yeah. Making plans and no one's around. You're on the highway to the lost and found. How you ever gonna get turned around? Standing here but there ain't no set out. You're on the highway to the lost and found. You're on the highway to the lost and found. Woo!
Okay, we're going to find out now about a suicide prevention charity that's currently doing great work throughout Belfast and Northern Ireland. The charity is called Lighthouse, and I'm pleased to say that Gary Symington from the charity and Lauren Moffatt join us now in the studio. Guys, welcome. Gary, I first heard about this charity a couple of days ago. We're at a big event at the Stormont Hotel and heard a lot about Lighthouse, and I was so inspired to bring you on today to find out more. Tell us about how you got involved with the charity.
I was a youth worker in West Belfast for maybe 10 years, and the job had been advertised. And I had been doing some work in West Belfast with another charity, Suicide Awareness and Support Group, and sort of in the early days. And it was tough, but I thought, you know, I'm gonna have a go at this.
Yeah.
Just the way things were in my previous job. I'm a youth worker, so that's what I trained to do. And the way things were, I wasn't getting as many opportunities to do that. So this job came up and I thought, I'm going to try this because it was more around prevention. I was working with young people around promoting positive mental health. So I applied, so that was 10 years ago. And I thought, I'll give it to 3 years. It was a comic relief funded project. I'll give it to 3 years and see how it goes. And yeah, 10 years later, I'm still there.
Still here.
Still really enjoying it.
Still doing it, and we've said this many times in the show before, but the sad thing is that suicide again is on the rise here in Northern Ireland, and for such a small country, the figures are horrendous, aren't they?
Very scary, very frightening. And there's Professor Siobhan O'Neill's quite extensively about the impact of transgenerational trauma, where it's almost like indirectly we're passing our trauma down onto our children, because in the early days we didn't deal with it, we just got on with it. You just had to get on with it because you had to. You had to go up and go to work or be a parent. And I think the impact that's starting to really hit us now. And if you look at conflict throughout the world, suicides rates increase and wars end.
Yeah, yeah.
And we find ourselves in a time now where people are really struggling with this whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
So we, as a charity, we're now starting to worry about what's potentially coming down the line. Where when this stops, then that's what will really affect us. So yeah, it's very, very frightening, it's very scary. And we see people who are struggling with their mental health and are suicidal, but we also work with the families where there has been a death. And that can be very, very, I mean, any death, any bereavement is traumatizing for any family. But there's something about a suicidal death, particularly if maybe families and friends wondering why, what could I have done? What if? And their pain just begins when their loved one dies. It just starts. And when you see some people that you work with, it's almost like a part of them has died.
We're seeing suicide within so many younger people these days as well. Why is that happening?
Do you know, I'd love to be able to give you an answer to that, Robin. I really would. I've just completed working with a group of young men, 2 groups of young men who lost a friend last year. He took his life. A very, very popular young man, real hit with the girls and the guys actually. Just very outgoing, a GAA superstar, and everything going. And I had been working with him on a one-to-one basis, and he seemed to turn the corner. He was doing really well, and he took his life. And he had friends as part of his GAA group. He had friends at school. He had friends from his primary school. He had friends in the community he used to live in. So we had many, many groups of different friends because he was very, very popular. And it really hit his friends very, very hard. So the school that the young fellow went to, they were concerned about his friends. So myself and Sinead McElvanna, who's one of the counsellors in Lighthouse, she's a youth counsellor. We decided, let's try group work with these young fellas, and 20 of them turned up, so we decided to have 2 groups. So we worked with them for several months, and we didn't talk about their friend's death, actually, because it was too raw for them. It was maybe 6 or 7 weeks before we even got into having them conversations, but it was a space for them to be able to offload, if they like. So that what actually happened, they became a great support for each other. We have just had the first group down to Kerry, to Clymahess Mountain in Ireland, and next Friday we're taking the second group down to Clymahess Mountain. And so it was about normalising their grief and giving young fellas an opportunity to actually talk about stuff, because their place to go when they can't deal with it a lot of the time is anger. It could be drug use, it could be just stuff where they hurt themselves or they hurt other people because they don't really understand, or maybe this has been the first time something very traumatic has happened and they don't really know how to deal with it. So that work for the last 3 years has been all around working with young men around mental health, and trying to create a message that, you know what, lads, it's all right to talk about this stuff. We have hearts and it's tough, and it's really tough, but you know what, we have each other. So yeah, that's the group work stuff that can be very, very good. And several of them young men actually went into counselling as well, because they thought, you know what, I can maybe try one-to-one stuff for myself.
That's an important point you made there, because men, as I know as well, find it very difficult to talk about their feelings, don't they? Yeah,
well, that's it. And that's what was excellent about Comic Relief. Comic Relief is very proactive and very forward thinking. And the project, the themes of the project was mental health, young men and sport. And I thought, well, a lot of these young fellas I work with, they play rugby, they play football, they play Gaelic, they have them opportunities in school. What they maybe don't get opportunities to do is do outdoor stuff, like mountaineering. So we did some canoeing expeditions with them. And yeah, climbing the highest mountain in Ireland. We had planned to do Ben Nevis, but we just, because of COVID and stuff, it was cancelled 3 times.
Right, yes.
So the highest mountain in Ireland is tough enough, actually.
We'll talk more about Lighthouse in a second. I want to bring in Lauren now, because Lauren, I heard your story the other day. You told it to a room full of strangers, and my God, you touched everybody in the room. There were so many people talking about your speech after that. Tell us your story. Why did you get involved with Lighthouse?
So I first got involved with Lighthouse as a service user, roughly I think it was about 9 years ago now. I had gone through struggles myself, was struggling with my mental health. Had struggled for a long time without really telling anybody about it or talking to anybody about how I was feeling. Then decided that it was too difficult to do it on my own anymore, and I needed to help with somebody else. So then I did talk to a friend, and then I managed to get a referral over to Lighthouse. Then my time at Lighthouse started with counselling, which was really helpful. But then I think probably the most helpful thing that I went through then was the group with Gary. So Gary would have been my youth worker then, and it was similar to what Gary's saying about the fellas that they're working with now. It was like all young people around sort of similar age to me who were all going through the same sort of struggles. We all had our own stories, but they were sort of similar, like we were all struggling, and we all became really good friends out of it. So the group was roughly about a year it ran for, and we all sort of became, like Gary saying, like we all became a support network for each other. So it kind of got to a point where Gary and Lindsay, who ran the group, like they sort of ran the activities, and then outside of the group, then we all supported each other through if anybody was having a rough week, or if just if anybody wanted to talk. We all became really good friends. I think that in itself, to know that you had the support of other people who would understand what you were going through, really, really helped. Then after that, then once the group finished, then we got loads of opportunities to volunteer with Lighthouse, then to volunteer with other organisations as well that would sort of Lighthouse would work with. So we had like so many opportunities out of it, as well as what we got from the group and the support that we had.
There might be somebody watching this at the moment who's going through a lot, doesn't know who to talk to, doesn't know where to turn. What kind of advice would you give to them?
Just choose somebody that you trust, and somebody that you feel that you can talk openly with. It doesn't have to be somebody who you think is going to know the answers. It just needs to be somebody. Just reach out and ask for help from somebody that you trust, somebody that you feel you can talk to. And they don't have to have all the answers for you either. Like they can help you to get the answers from somewhere.
Yeah.
But the like of Lighthouse, or to speak to your GP, or to get a referral for counselling anywhere, but just reach out and talk to somebody. It's not something you should go through on your own.
Gary, you guys are doing great work at Lighthouse, but there's only so much you can do, I would imagine, due to funding and stuff like that. Is it difficult to keep the charity funded?
Well, I've been involved in this type of work, youth work, in the voluntary sector since I was about 20 or 21. So that's 30 years chasing money, constantly chasing money. And a lot of times it's short term, it's 2 years funding or 3 years funding. And you know, Lighthouse has survived on that since 2003. But what would be really lovely is to be able to have breathing space where you maybe had 5 years of funding, and you didn't have to spend so much of your time chasing it and writing applications for it and then returns for it all. That's tough, but you know what? We need it, and because we have to do it, it allows us essentially, we're saving lives.
Yeah.
The charity saves lives. Like I could count thousands of people, Robin, have walked through the door of Lighthouse since 2003, thousands. And I could count in one hand the amount of them people are dead. Because they came for help and they're still alive.
Yeah.
And this is the message that we try to get to people, you know. And Lauren said it there, sometimes your thoughts tell you lies. As they say to young people, if you haven't spoke to anybody about your stuff, about what's going on and stuff you're having difficulty with, if you haven't spoke to anybody about that, then you start to believe the thoughts that you have about yourself and about your life until someone else shows you something different and says, well, have you thought about this? And that can be, as Lauren says, that can be anybody, it can be a friend, but it's just about saying it for the first time. And it is pretty amazing to sit in Lighthouse at reception and you see a person coming in for the first time, they've maybe lifted the phone or someone's did it for them. You have an appointment for 10 o'clock to see somebody, they walk in and you can see them physically shake and sweating and they're sitting at the reception. And we always try to pride ourselves on being welcoming to people because it's like, think about what they're coming to do. They're coming to tell their story for the first time in their lives. For some people, they walk down the stairs after that 1 hour, or maybe a bit longer, maybe a bit shorter, depending. They may need an ambulance to take them straight to hospital because they're threatening to hurt themselves that day. Some people walk out the door and don't come back because whatever they needed, they got in that 1 hour just to have somebody else listen who wasn't going to judge them and who's heard probably a lot worse stories than the ones that they told. Or they may decide, I'm going to come back next week. Actually, that wasn't too bad. I'm going to try counselling, or I'm going to try art therapy, or I'm going to try family support because nobody really, I don't know anybody who really understands what I'm going through or what I have been through. So yeah, but that's all of our sector. That's all of the voluntary sector here. We're always chasing money to survive, to keep our charities going. And thankfully we've a patchwork of that. Some money from Department of Health, the Public Health Agency. I've been very fortunate with Comic Relief. Comic Relief has funded the youth part of Lighthouse for 9 years.
Brilliant. Yeah.
That is just unheard of. We've had some financial support from Ulster Carpets, have been very good. They funded 2 posts. The youth counsellor post, which we never had. We now have that part-time and we have Sinead who does that job, and it's fabulous to have that as a resource. Yeah.
And of course, you're constantly fundraising as well. Are there any fundraising events coming up that we should know about?
Well, we're very, very fortunate that we've been chosen as Hastings Hotel's Charity of the Year. So there's many, many events that they're putting on. There's the whole programme for Christmas at the Europa. Tina Turner, the Bay City Rollers. So there's many concerts, and we're very, very lucky to have that support in place.
All right, but if people want to find out more about what you guys do, tell us the website they can check up then.
Okay, so it's www.lighthousecharity.com.
Brilliant. Well, Gary and Lauren, thank you so much for coming in today and telling us about the charity, and thank you for sharing your story as well. I'm going to play a song now that I think's pretty appropriate. This was released last year by a singer-songwriter from West Belfast called Cubb McCullough, who sadly lost his son to suicide as well. And here's a great video that he made last year.
a story left unwritten, a song that can't be played. Same old heartache and a cross to bear, never getting any easier, 'cause you're not there. And the years don't heal, and the tears don't dry. Every day brings back a memory that don't pass me by. And the pain, it never fades away. To others it's a lifetime, to me it's like yesterday. An old photograph that I've seen before. Were you smiling and I talked to you till the pain was more? I say the same old lines that I always say. To others it's a lifetime, to me it's yesterday. And the years don't heal, and the tears don't dry. Every day brings back a memory that don't pass me by. And the pain, it never fades away. To others it's a lifetime, to me it's like yesterday. I dream your face time and time again. Since you said goodbye to this world, nothing seems the same. I just about get through every single day. When I think about you leaving, seems like yesterday. And the years don't heal, and the tears don't dry. Every day brings back a memory that don't pass me by. And the pain, it never fades away. To others it's a lifetime, to me it's like yesterday. And the years don't heal, and the tears don't dry. Every day brings back a memory that don't pass me by. And the pain, it never fades away. To others it's a lifetime, to me it's like yesterday. To others it's a lifetime, to me it's like yesterday. To others it's a lifetime, to me it's like yesterday.
Now, finishing off the big show this week, we're going to meet TV presenter and star of Loose Women, Andrea McClean. We're talking about midlife celebrations, and here's what happens when I caught up with Andrea earlier on this week. Now, TV presenter Andrea McClean has taken on many new challenges throughout her life and career, and today she's going to be explaining to us why a midlife celebration is something we can all be excited about. She joins us now on the line. Andrea, how are you?
I'm great, thank you very much. I'm very good. How are you, Robin?
Very well, thank you. So thank you for joining us. So we're forgetting the midlife crisis now, and we're celebrating instead, aren't we?
Why not? I mean, let's face it, we could all do with celebrating something after the 18 months that we've had. So why not take something that, you know, the David Lloyd Club's research has shown that over a quarter of us feel that it's such a negative term, the word midlife crisis. And we've got so used to it, just kind of rolls off the tongue. We say it without even thinking about what the words mean, that we need to flip it around, and we need to reframe it so that it is seen as a time of celebration. I mean, for goodness sake, you've reached this point. That is a celebration in itself, but also a time of midlife change where you just sit and reevaluate and think, Am I happy with where I'm going? And you know, if I am, brilliant, big fat tick. And if not, what can I do about it and feel energized and positive about it?
So what do you reckon it is that's still holding people back from trying new things then?
100% is fear. And I think that, you know, fear is a natural and very necessary emotion because it stops us doing really stupid things. But it can also stop us from doing things that can help us and make us feel good about ourselves. And I think we have different fears when we're younger. We're scared of doing something that's different to our friends. But I think when we get to midlife, we're afraid that we're a failure, that we're going to get it wrong and people will laugh at us and not understand. We're afraid of embarrassing ourselves. But we're also afraid of succeeding, because if we, for example, if we decide to make any kind of changes in our life, whether you change job and you maybe don't have the status that you did, or you decide to change your lifestyle and your friends around you don't do that thing, fear of succeeding is actually what holds people back as well. So I think that one of the great things that David Lloyd has done is looked that fear in the face and thought, right, if people are thinking, especially after the pandemic and everything is opening up, and I want to really try and look after myself now, but I'm middle-aged and I don't want to go to the gym. Everyone's really young and I'm going to just embarrass myself. Is this whole idea that they're making the commitment that there's going to be at least one personal trainer who's aged 55 and over. It's so refreshing, because you'll walk in and there'll be somebody there that you think, oh, thank God, they're the same sort of age group as me, and they'll, you know, understand. But also they'll understand how our bodies work, because they work differently to when we're in our 20s. And I think embracing all of that and thinking, like, this is just where I am right now and this is what I'm looking to do is such a positive thing.
Now, what about you? You're looking absolutely fabulous. Do you have a regular fitness regime?
I do, actually. Yeah, I've always looked after myself in terms of being active. I was quite a sporty teenager, so I suppose the blueprint was sort of set there. But you know, I'm 51, nearly 52. My life changed as dramatically as everyone else's did during lockdown. I've got more corona curves than I did before. But I've always looked after myself and gone to the gym and done things like weights, yoga, running. It's something that is as part of my daily routine as brushing my teeth, that I see it as part of my 360-degree process of looking after myself.
What about yourself? Any new challenges that you've taken on recently?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in the past year myself, I had a midlife celebration where I walked away from a 23-year career in TV. I was the longest serving host of Loose Women. And I got to a point where I thought I'm actually fully ready to step into this next chapter of my life and devote myself to, you know, I call it service. I work with women who, they're not just middle-aged. Our community is anywhere from 19 up to 67, actually. And I help women think differently. That's the whole purpose of everything that I do with my business is just, I call it a gym for the mind. And it's all about just showing people that going to the gym for the body is one thing, but actually making it a really normalizing process where you work on your thinking, because that's where everything begins. That's where my passion is now.
So I suppose for people who are in that kind of 45 plus age gap, maybe they've been stuck in the same job for many years, it is okay to make changes now. It is okay to step away, as you've proved.
I think a lot of the time we stay where we are because we're so scared of, well, you know, we're the breadwinner, we've got mortgages, we've got bills, we've got kids and family to support. And it's very, very frightening to think of, well, what else can I do? I only know this one thing. And I was like that. There was a lot of imposter syndrome and thinking, who am I to step out into a whole new arena and people are going to laugh at me, it could fail. I felt all of those things. And there are days when I still think all of those things. But I think to stay exactly where you are and remaining unhappy because you're afraid of what might go wrong is kind of only listening to half of the story. You need to think of what might go right. And yes, work out a survival plan or a blueprint for failure so that you know, right, I've got things in place for if things do go wrong. But why not also flip it 180 and look at what might go right? And don't let fear of stepping away and maybe, you know, the prestige that comes with the job that you're doing now and changing it. And what will my friends think? And what will my family think? What will the neighbors think? Just do it anyway. Don't live your life for what other people are thinking. You have to do what works for you.
For anybody working in television, spending 23 years on the one show, that's a very long time to be on that TV show. It always looked like you were having a good time, you were enjoying yourself. Was it as much fun during the day behind the scenes?
I think it's like any job. Yes, of course. There are days when you just come home and you think, oh my gosh, I've got the best job in the world. I'm so lucky. And there are other days you come home and you don't think that. And so that's just pretty normal, like any other job. And for me, I felt like when I was 13 years on Lou Simi, and I worked for GMTV before then. I think because I had already started working my other business on the side, and I realized actually my passion was starting to sway and lean more heavily in towards that, it just felt like this was something that I wanted to go all in on rather than trying to juggle both. So it actually felt like quite a natural thing to do.
Would you ever do any more TV, or is that the end of daytime TV for you?
No, not at all. Yes, I would 100% do more TV, and but when I'm ready. Yeah. And I think that you know, I've turned down a lot of work since I left because it wasn't in the type of direction that I've stepped into now. But if it fit, yes, 100%. But also even just some fun things. You know, there's some really fun things on TV that I still really enjoy. And if anyone from Catchphrase is listening, I will 100% come back because for a little while I was a reigning champion on Catchphrase, and it is the only program where I will practically elbow my children in the face to get the answer out first. I'm very competitive when it comes to Catchphrase. So yeah, do that again.
Wow. What about acting? Would you do that?
I had a little go on that a few years ago. You know, never say never. The way I see it is if I got asked to do something, that's their responsibility. If they've hired me because they think I can do a job, I will turn up and do my best. And if it's not good enough, I've tried with all my heart and soul, and so be it. But yeah, why not? Why not?
All right. Tell us more about David Lloyd's then, this fitness campaign. Where can people get more information if they want to get into the gym then?
Oh, well, if you're feeling a bit, not sure about all of this, head over to davidlloyd.co.uk. You'll find all the information there on everything that we're talking about, and just encouraging you to just look into your health and wellness, and don't just see it as I'm going to the gym and I'm going to be surrounded by scary fit people. Actually, it's an embracing place where the fact that you're there is something to be celebrated.
Ah, brilliant. Andrea, some great advice there. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Oh, thank you. Lovely to speak to you.
So that's all we have time for on The Big Show this week. Thank you to all my guests, and I'll see you back here same time next week. Bye-bye.